Craven County Board is now in session. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Liner?
Here.
Commissioner McCabe?
Here.
Commissioner Sampson?
Here.
Commissioner Tyson?
Here.
Vice Chairman Dacey?
Here.
Chairman Mark?
Here. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father God, I give you thanks for another day of life and for the blessings that you have showered upon us this day. Lord, I thank you for this nation in which we live and for the freedoms in which we have. And I ask for your protecting hand to cover our nation. I ask you, Father, for your guidance for our leaders and, Father, this night for this Board of Commissioners. I ask for your wisdom. I ask that our words and decisions in which we make tonight would be honoring to you, that they will be for the benefit of the citizens in which we serve. And I thank you, Lord, for this opportunity that you have given us to serve. For I ask in Christ's name, amen.
Amen. If you would please put all phones on silent ring or turn them off altogether, please. Thank you. Gentlemen, you have an opportunity to look over the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, if may, I'd like to make a motion we add item 15 to go into an additional closed session per lawyer's guidelines.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. Next on the agenda is public hearing regarding incentives for Project Mockingbird for economic development purposes. Timothy Downey?
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Glad to be back before you again. Another project to talk about. So, you've heard about this project before. This is Chatsworth Products at the Industrial Park, looking to expand their facility by an additional 29,000 square feet. They have about $1.8 million in costs associated with this expansion. Covers adding to the building, covers adding a new driveway, covers adding some additional stormwater controls for their site. And with this project, they'll be adding approximately 15 jobs. I say approximately. They'll be adding 15 jobs. They think it'll probably be more than that, actually. So tonight, what we have before you is to consider an economic development incentive to help them with this project.
Do I have a motion to go in public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. We're now in public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, it appears as though that nobody has asked to speak on this specific public hearing.
Is there anybody here that?
There is another public hearing on Project Grouse that somebody has signed up for.
Okay. Motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. Next is public hearing. Timothy?
Second of two great projects for us right now. We call this Project Grouse. This is actually a company that's coming from out of state, from Pennsylvania. They are looking to occupy a facility, currently vacant facility at the industrial park. It's about 17,000 square feet. They look to add 20 jobs over 3 years, 33 jobs over 5 years. Their investment is somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.5 million over those 5 years. And they are really excited about coming to Craven County, so much so that they can't wait to hear from the state. The state is currently considering a 1NC grant in the amount of $70,000. And one of the items before you tonight is to support a building reuse application for the state to receive $130,000 from the state to make significant modifications to the facility at the industrial park. New office, put in a couple cranes, put in increased power capacity for the facility, and some other minor things. So again, they're super excited, waiting to hear from the state, and then they'll make their announcement as far as occupying the facility. But again, tonight's agenda item that we're talking about right now is for you to consider an incentive to help them with their project.
Okay, do I have a motion to go to public hearing for economic development purposes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. And now in public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, Hal James has asked to speak.
I'm Hal James. I live at 305 Calico Drive, and a spokesperson for the Coastal Carolina Taxpayers Association. I'm glad Mr. Bounds explained both these projects, not in much detail, but he explained them. And because it's the first that I've heard of it, and I've attended all the meetings. I was a little surprised when I saw the consent agenda at the last meeting on the 20th. It had two projects listed like military intelligence operations, one called Project Grouse and one of them Project Mockingbird. They were posted under the announcements to set these public hearings. So after the meeting, I asked Commissioner Liner why there had been two things put on the agenda that there'd been no discussion of in the consent agenda. A few years ago, on behalf of CCTA, I asked this board to either do away with the consent agenda or limit it to those items which are truly routine. And that was done. Then when Commissioner Liner came on board, he said it would expedite the meetings a lot if they could go back to having various things on the consent agenda. I can see that point. But this thing had never been discussed, and I wanted to know more about it. So I asked him to look into it for me, and he said that it had been considered before, and it was in the closed hearing. So, you know, I don't go to the closed hearing, so there was no way at this point that any member of the public really knows what was going on with these two projects. Then I took a look at Commissioner Liner emailed me back that this had been discussed in closed session. And so I figured, well, if we're going to have a meeting on it, discuss it, and nobody has seen anything, maybe the minutes of the closed session have been posted. So I checked there, and they had not been posted. And I wanted to read those minutes so I would know what they had learned before we had this discussion. So there again, I was unable to find out anything. So then Commissioner Liner told me that all that had been disclosed under an item on the county's website that's called public hearing announcements. So I went on that, and he was right about that. But that was posted on August the 22nd. That was 2 days after the previous meeting, so it was after the fact. Well, I was surprised again because I've tried to keep up with what goes on in the budget meetings, and I thought I'd done a pretty good job of it, but I was really lost on that one. The minutes are supposed to be available whenever the need for secrecy is over. The need for secrecy is obviously over. It's been presented here tonight, and they're still not posted. I know that one of the projects is to provide $175,000 roughly to a private company. Another one is to provide $210,000 to a private company. One to locate at the industrial park, and the other one to expand its own, what's already there. So they're not even bringing anything new in, really. They said that it's going to be high-paying jobs. Generally, when they're high-paying jobs, that means that a lot of technical training has got to be made to get those people trained up to do these technical jobs, and that's been a problem for a lot of the companies that are already here. So then I'm looking at it, is it fair to ask a business person, for money, tax money, to support a competitor in a similar business, and he's not getting that kind of support himself? In other words, if you own some property, you let a child set a lemonade stand up on there, so to provide employment for the other children, do you have any right to do that? Well, of course you don't. So if the public doesn't have that right, if the people don't have that right, then the government doesn't have that right, because the people didn't give it to the government. Where did the right come from to do that? And I suppose that it's not right to do it.
Thank you. We have a motion. Anybody else speaking on this?
Nope.
We have a motion to go out of public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Mr. Downs, could you come back up to the podium, please? I think that the gentleman that's up here probably had some legitimate questions, and that I think that the board ought to answer. We're not taking action on this tonight or the other one.
No,
but-
we're going to be covering it, though, later on.
Later.
Program.
Okay, so is this the appropriate time to do it, Mr. Chairman, or would you rather me wait until?
Well, I think we're going to discuss it in depth.
Detail.
Okay, well, then I'll wait. If you're gonna be here, we'll talk about it in more detail.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next is petition of citizens.
Sandra Wheeler.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I'm Sandra Wheeler at 1207 Longview Drive in New Bern, North Carolina. I'm just here to briefly chat about the farm bill that you're going to be considering this evening. I grew up on a farm in Winston-Salem's South Fork community, so I know a bit about farming. My grandfather was in tobacco, so I know a bit about tobacco farming as well. I support, of course, a farm bill that would protect our farmers. However, that said, there is some language that I want you to pay particular attention to within the ratified bill in the before the North Carolina legislature, and that is the language that speaks of frivolous lawsuits. Repeatedly, there is language that talks of frivolous lawsuits. That language appears to deliberately prevent individuals from seeking claims for judgment when their exposure to toxic fumes and contaminated waters, for example, around pig farms, causes them serious bodily injury, bodily harm, and including serious and permanent disability in some cases, and even premature death. These are cases that have been brought before the courts and have been proven to be the fault of the industrial farm. And the value of property for these individuals, many of whom are living on historic generational properties, completely dissipates in most cases. So please be considerate of that when you are reviewing this to put forth your petition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Long.
Susan Long, 1990 Acorn Drive, New Bern, North Carolina. Good to see you, fellas. Recently, we mourned the death of Senator John McCain, a man who stood up for the American ideal of freedom and justice for all. In death, we saw a bipartisan stance with Nancy Pelosi and Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and Chuck Schumer. If we can come together in death, why can't we come together in life? Why must we make it harder for one set of our citizens to accomplish the American dream? Why can't we remove the blinders that cause women to be disadvantaged because of injustice and discrimination? I will not rest until I see a constitutional amendment passed to put women on the same playing field as men. It is my dream to see women compensated with equal pay for equal work. No one should make less money for doing the same job. The outlook for pay equity is discouraging. Last year, there was a reversal of the 2009 bill that would have required companies to include breakdowns by gender and race in pay data reported to the government. It would have exposed pay differences among about 63 million American workers. I would like to thank Commissioner McCabe and Commissioner Sampson for their vote of support for all women in Craven County and this country. Perhaps one day we will see justice served for every citizen, no matter of race, religion, national origin, or sex. And for those of you who just don't get it, I encourage you to watch on September 9th at 8 o'clock or at 10 o'clock a reshowing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She is the champion of equality and explains very clearly why an equal rights amendment is needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hal James.
Well, I just want to, I'm Hal James, 305 Calico Drive. I just want to ask you once again to reconsider what you put on these consent agendas when you decide what's going to be on the consent agenda. If it had not been thoroughly discussed at meetings and open and given the public the opportunity to know what it is, then it ought not to be on the consent agenda. I can understand things like, even the proclamation sometimes, if it's a really nice one, if somebody's getting a really nice award, like the military people down there in Cherry Point, they're getting a nice award, maybe there should be some mention of things like that. I just don't think you're considering responsibly enough, in my opinion, what goes on the consent agenda, and I wish you'd do a better job of it. Thank you.
Rodney Russell.
Good evening. My name is Rodney Russell. I live at 439 Lofton Farm Road in Dover. I'd like to start by saying thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak to each of you. And also, I appreciate the time and effort that each of you give to make Craven County a better place to call home. I come to you tonight to ask for your support in backing the Craven County School Board's grant for putting resource officers at our elementary schools. My son Brooks is a second grader at James W. Smith, and I would be lying to each of you if I told you I didn't worry about his safety when he was at school. As far as I'm aware, there haven't been any issues, but like you, I'm aware the world we grew up in is not the same that our children are growing up in today. When I was going to school, there wasn't a such thing as cyberbullying, social media, and the closest thing we had to the internet was a set of encyclopedias or watching the world news with our parents at night. I never once thought about someone coming into my school trying to shoot everyone they encountered. Unfortunately, though, it seems that we have this type of mass incident weekly. I truly believe we've been extremely lucky here in eastern North Carolina, but I'm also afraid that it's only a matter of time. Statistics show that the average active shooting incident only lasts between 5 and 8 minutes, and for every minute an active shooter incident lasts, between 1 and 4 people will become victims. With a national average response time of law enforcement of about 10 minutes, with the time that they receive the first 911 call, that equates to between 5 and 32 victims per incident. These numbers do not begin to touch the emotional scarring of every student, every teacher, administrator, and first responder that endures this tragedy. I know our deputies will do any and all things possible to arrive on scene and eliminate the threat as quickly as they possibly could, but logically speaking, James W. Smith is a long ways out there. Having a law enforcement officer on site would reduce the response time to seconds and hopefully stop, if not prevent, any type of incident before it occurred. Another reason I would like to see school resource officers at James W. Smith and all the elementary schools is to help build relationships between our children and law enforcement. Unfortunately, most of the encounters our children have with law enforcement on the western end of Craven County are during some of the most difficult times or times of crisis. And our deputies and state troopers are there to handle the call that they were dispatched to. This often puts law enforcement in a bad light. I personally do not want our children to grow up not realizing that our law enforcement officers can be trusted and they are here to help and protect each one of us. Having an officer at the school each day allows our children to interact with law enforcement in a positive environment, and it allows them to get to know the officer as someone they can trust and confide in when they believe that their world is swirling out of control. I've had the pleasure to participate in a couple of events like Coffee with a Cop, and on one such occasion, my wife and I were talking about it afterwards, and my son, who I didn't even know was listening, asked me, he said, "Dad, why don't the police come to my school and talk to us? We could have cookies with a cop." I didn't have a good answer for him, but I did tell him I thought that was a really great idea. Sometimes as adults, I think we think we have all the right answers, but I guess we still have trouble seeing the forest for all the trees in the way. Having a school resource officer at the school will provide our teachers with another resource to report matters of possible abuse, neglect, or countless other situations our teachers and administrators are trained to be on the lookout for. It would also provide teachers and administrators with a second opinion of those same types of situations. School resource officers at our school can also provide staff members with a direct link to services that our staff may or may not know exist. Having a very active and outdoor-loving little boy, I tell my wife all the time, "You stop."
You stop, that's it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
E.C. Dobson.
Greetings and blessings to each of you. Mr. Chairman, members of the Craven County Commissioners Board, my name is Erlinda Dobson. I live in the Jasper community, the western part of Craven County. I stand tonight to ask each of you to consider funding a resource officer for James W. Smith Elementary School. We are living in perilous times, and it is necessary for our children in the western part of Craven County to have the protection of an officer on the school grounds daily. The location of the school is isolated from the mainstream of Craven County. If an emergency arises, it would take at least 25 to 45 minutes for an officer to get to the school unless one happens to be patrolling the area at that time of the incident. Then we could narrow the response time to about 10 to 15 minutes. Having a resource officer at the school will serve several purposes. First, it will build a rapport with the children and law enforcement officers. The officers will have an opportunity to deposit golden lasting nuggets into the lives of these young children that will last them a lifetime. It will help the children to view the officers in a positive light. Second, the officer will bring a greater ease to the staff at the school, knowing that they have someone with skills, knowledge, and rescue abilities on site at the school. Third, the officer will be able to defuse situations at the school before they escalate. This could be between student to student, teacher to student, or parent to staff. Many times, just a calm voice or different opinion can diffuse a situation. This could be a win-win situation for all of us. I am convinced that the commissioners can see the benefit, including a line item in the budget for a resource officer at James W. Smith School in the western part of Craven County, the rural area, back in the woods. Thank you for your time, and I can't wait to see that officer at James W. Smith School greeting the students, the staff, the parents, and the visitors at our school on the far end of Craven County. Thank you for doing that.
Ray Griffin.
God bless you, young lady. Ray Griffin, Vanceboro, North Carolina. We are living in some perilous times, amen? Today, the social agenda is using the media to promote and change mindset. It has been said the greatest channel you need to use is the media to change human attitude. Use the press, the radio, the TV, the cinema, and advertising agencies, billboards, and magazines. A former NFL quarterback inspired a players' protest movement, signed a multi-year contract with Nike. Nike will produce apparel with the NFL players' name on it, including shoes, T-shirts, and other merchandise. Nike will also donate money to his campaign, Know Your Rights. This is the player who knelt down and refused to stand for the national anthem. He has been disrespectful to America and to the flag of the United States of America. Today, the ACLU was trying to tear down Christianity and take away the cross of Christ. Today, they are tearing down monuments that stood for 100 years. But there's one monument that will never tear down. It will stand the test of time. If they can promote
that they are going to refuse to stand up for our nation and our heritage, and they are going to tear down the monuments, and they're going to tear down the crosses of everything, and everywhere you go, turn down crosses, then I can stand up for Jesus. We need to stand up. So I thought about that, and I made up this sign. This monument will stand forever. Forgive us, O Lord, and heal our nation. And I began to think the lightning is the judgment of God coming upon America. In the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about in the 23rd chapter about we are walking on slippery ground. We're at one day just to fall into the pits any day. But this monument will stand forever. And God is on the throne. God still rules. And like the ladies have said, God bless the schools, bless our staff, all that they have to go through. And thank you the other night for repealing the ERA. Thank you for that. Thank you for the brunch bill that you vote down. Thank you for that. And I say thank you for the cross of Calvary, because God's still on the throne, God still rules, and God still reigns, and this monument will stand forever. But remember these words: forgive us, Lord, and heal our nation. Amen?
Thank you.
Casey Martino?
It's a hard one, yes, sir.
Forgive me, I'm so sorry.
No, my parents did it to me a long time ago. The last name is hard enough. My first name's spelled really bad. Casey Martino, 248 Forsyth, there on Cherry Point. Good evening, commissioners. I'm a 17-year Navy vet. We moved here from Colorado, finishing out my time here in Havelock. And at first, I was very concerned because I said, I have no idea what's there. I had heard horror stories. I'll tell you, I love it. Every bit of it. It's a great small town. I feel safe and everything. That being said, I never really took political stances on anything. And when the March for Our Lives happened, we took a trip to DC. Excuse me, can't talk about my daughter. I took her so that she could understand. So 17 years, I always kind of knew what I was getting into. I send my daughter and my wife to school every day. 100% of my household goes to a school. So when I read in the paper that a couple weeks ago that the school resource officer grant was approved, I guess my assumption was that we're moving forward with it. And I didn't do enough research to know where we stand, but I did see that her school was on the New Tech Academy, Roger Bell New Tech Academy. It's a long name. And it made me happy. My senior year, I came from a town smaller than Havelock, and we had a school resource officer. At first, it was very strange. It was, for my generation, it really wasn't a thing, and it was kind of the new thing. It was kind of weird, but by the end of the year, it was just another teacher, another staff member. And I guess the point is, if you have the ability in these 4 schools to provide more resources to students, another outlet to students. I'm a child of abuse. My father was an abusive alcoholic. I didn't ever call 911 because I didn't know it was an option. I went to school and had no idea that anybody was looking out for me. This is an opportunity for kids that are in an abusive situation. This is an opportunity to provide safety in the schools. I mean, rural schools. I mean, that's, I came from a town this big. I don't even know where the police station was to this day. So, it's a reality that we live in. And what we don't want to do is have this opportunity pass us by and not provide these resources that are available to us at a great discount, a 66% discount, right? It was a 2-to-1 grant. And if it's not approved, we're going to be sitting here one day having a conversation that's a lot harder to have. And let's hope that never happens. But this is an opportunity to make sure that doesn't happen, be proactive with it. We have a great community. We have the opportunity to provide something that makes it even better and be proactive instead of being reactive. I just ask you to, make sure that it actually happens. It's a great opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the list of folks who have signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Next is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of August 20th, proclamation in recognition of the 75th anniversary of Fleet Readiness Center, The board will be requested to adopt the proclamation contained in attachment 4B, recognizing that anniversary. Resolution in support of North Carolina farmers. The board will request to adopt that resolution. Prostate Cancer Awareness Month proclamation. Military Family of the Quarter resolution. Tax releases and refunds. And may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Dacey?
Yes.
Chairman Mark?
Yes. Thank you. Next, they say the appointment of a county attorney. I think we did that. But before we appoint the county attorney, I'm going to take some chairman privilege here because we have an attorney that was with us and is no longer going to be with us, and he's kind of grown on me. So I would like him to come up and maybe say a few words about his next endeavor.
Come on. You scared that
It's
come up?
clearly not working tonight.
Chairman Mark, Vice Chairman Dacey, and Commissioners, thank you. As you know, today is my last day of practicing law in New Bern. It also just happens to be the 27th anniversary of my practicing law in New Bern at Summerall Sugg. I have
We didn't know you were that old.
I didn't have gray hair before I started here. No, sir. Yes, I have some wonderful opportunities. I will be moving to London in a couple of weeks and exploring some new options and opportunities, and just an opportunity and a chance that I could not pass up. I do want to say, though, that the most rewarding part of my career has been representing local governments. It just is fun, believe it or not. And I was fortunate enough to start working with Craven County 27 years ago through Mr. Sugg. And so it's not only been an honor to do that, but it's been my privilege to be your county attorney for the last 10 or so years now. So I have really enjoyed the working relationship. I have more so, though, enjoyed the personal relationship and the friendships that I've developed with the commissioners now and past, staff, Jack. I've said it all around the state. Jack's a rock star. It is wonderful. But and the volunteers, the boards, and the citizens of this county. So it has just been such a pleasure and such an honor. And it is bittersweet to leave, but it is something I need to do. I do take, though, great comfort in knowing that you have selected a wonderful person to be the next county attorney. He is not only a great attorney, but he's a great person. And he and the firm, I know, will continue to serve the county very, very well. The good news is that in my departure, both you and Jack and Erie have someone to blame for the next year when something goes wrong. So, Mr. Chairman, again, thank you for this wonderful honor and privilege.
Well, I want to thank you too, Jim. I think you served the county in a very sincere and honest way. Would any of the other commissioners like to?
I'd just like to say, please don't come back with one of those fake British accents. Try to impress us.
I've been warned by more than one person at my firm.
No, I've been here on the board for 12 years now, and it's really, Jimmy is looked at as an authority in county law and local government law as well throughout the state. So we're going to miss you for sure, and I hope your cell phone works over there in case we need to get you from time to time. But anyhow, best of luck in your future endeavors, and hey, old Tyson might pop in on you one day.
Please do.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say, I've known Jimmy since I was a little boy. I followed Granddaddy through the political arena. He followed Mr. Jim through the political arena. So I feel like we sort of grew up together to some degree. But have great respect for you, and especially to his family. If nobody's ever met his father, he is one of a kind. You'll never forget his father and mother. But a great family, great asset to Craven County, and he will be missed greatly.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, as was evidenced this evening, I tend to push every minute to the very 60th second. And will oftentimes be right there at the edge of getting myself in trouble. And as some folks may know, when you get elected to these jobs, you have to take a course on ethics. And you have to demonstrate that you have finished that course. Well, I screwed up, of course, and didn't go to the course that was supposed to be offered through the School of Government, and hit that 60th second before the time bomb was gonna go off. And Jim Hicks stepped up and said, well, you know, I can give you the course. And he could keep me straight. And so we sat in his office for what seemed like 8 hours. It seemed like 8 hours.
He knew you needed a lot of ethics, Mr. Davis. You had needed a lot of
That's
training.
right. The point being is that there was every effort that could possibly be made that you exercised to make certain that our board stayed in full compliance, that we were not just observing the law, but observing the spirit of the law, and doing what we need to do to represent the people of Craven County in an ethical and responsible way, and I can't thank you enough for all of your leadership and your grace and your friendship.
I've been knowing Jim a pretty good while myself. Lloyd Suggs, he used to bring him around sometime. But I learned more about him. I used to go up there to the cafe and meet his dad up there. Couldn't get away from him talking about his son. And he was a character, you ever seen one. And I see Jimmy, I used to go up to the office, see him quite often. Me and Jimmy always got along well, and that's something to say because a lot of people don't seem to get along too well with me. But Jimmy did. And I appreciate what he has done for me, and I appreciate him and his family. Let's go. I said, well, let me see the time for his dad. I go there, that's to meet his dad, because he gonna give me a story when I get there. Have a good time and bless. Have a good blessing out there.
Thank you.
Let me check. I'd like to say to Jimmy that it was a pleasure and honor to work with you all these many years. And make sure you leave your address, because I'd like to go to London one time. And I'm not gonna ask you to pay for it, so I'll pay for myself. I know you're not gonna pay for it. But anyway, I hope that your family have a safe trip, and may God continue blessing you with everything you're doing in life. And I'm pretty sure you do good wherever you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, not like some commissioners, I got here earlier and we've had our relationship, and I'll say thank you. But I would like to ask this board, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the chairman to sign a resolution to honor Mr. Jimmy Hicks for his 11 years of service to the county.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it.
Good.
Thanks a
Thank you,
lot.
sir. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now, if the county clerk would come up and swear our new attorney in.
We're gonna wait for his family to come in.
All right.
All right, there's good. Wait, you want you to turn around so Jim can get a good picture of it. So I'll get on that side of him.
That was a camera.
You want your child or wife to hold the Bible for you? Would you do that for him? All right, make sure he raises his right hand, left hand on the Bible. All right, are you ready? I, Ari W. Grady III, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, so help me God.
I, Ari W. Grady III, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, so help me God.
All right, after this next one, you can just say, I will or I do. All right.
Make it a lot easier.
Okay. I, Area W. Grady III, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God.
I will.
I, Ari W. Grady III, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and truly serve the state of North Carolina and the office of County Attorney for Craven County. I will, in the execution of my office, endeavor to have the criminal laws fairly and impartially administered so far as in me lies, according to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God.
I will.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, everybody. Come on down. Okay. Good luck.
Okay. Next, Director Andrew Shorter on the department matters concerning the airport 2018 FAA federal grant agreement.
Mr. Chairman, good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioners, thank you for giving me some time tonight. It was almost exactly a year ago tonight, I was here asking a similar thing, and this will be to, I think, have the commissioners approve the chairman to sign the subsequent smooth version of the grant that we'll get from the FAA in the next few days. This grant's for $5.1855 million, and it's going to cover what I'm excited to say is the expansion of the commercial terminal apron. So we'll expand that. It was originally designed with this expansion in mind. So we're not having to do a lot of preparation work, but it's about 62,000 square feet that we'll add to it. And then we'll also rehabilitate what's there to concrete. It's been asphalt for the last 20 years. We've had to make several repairs to it. The airplanes are getting nothing but bigger now. So of course the concrete's gonna hold up a lot better for the bigger airplanes. The other two pieces of the grant are just a final installment of our tree removal that we've had ongoing for the last couple of years, and then reimbursement for some property that the commissioners approved back in December of 2016. So finally, the FAA is now reimbursing us for 90% of that property cost.
Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize the chairman to sign this agreement?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Question?
I have one too, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Reading this, now is that gonna make us capable to receive the two largest aircraft that you've got listed here, or are we already receiving them?
We are already receiving them at certain amounts. Obviously, when we start to receive them more over time, that becomes the issue. And it just makes it easier as we go on. If we're getting them every now and then, and there's not 2 or 3 on the ramp at the same time, we're able to work around that issue now. But again, the industry is where they're not making 50-seat airplanes anymore, so we will see an end of those smaller versions, next 2 to 5 years, I would say.
So this makes the capabilities of having more than one out there at a time, so you can.
Yes, sir, without, obviously with safety margins and things like that. And then, of course, the strength of the concrete is what's is important as well, so we don't have to continually rehabilitate what we have, again, costing more money in the long run.
Gotcha, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Andy, on the clearing over there, and I guess some of it's or all of it's in the forest,
Yes, sir.
are they just cutting all the trees down? What are they doing there?
Yeah, that's been interesting. It's been about an 8-year project to get the environmental assessment done there. We finally got that done. The U.S. Forest Service has actually issued a permit to the airport to maintain about 200 acres of that for the next 20 years. They have already let the bid. There is a contractor that's going to go out and do there. And then you can see in that diagram that they will cut the upland trees. The upland trees are generally the pine trees, which grow a lot higher and faster than the other trees. And so actually the part of money in this grant is to go in after they cut those upland trees to see if there are any wetland trees, which are generally the deciduous trees that don't grow as high, that are penetrating the surfaces for the aircraft approach. So once we get the upland trees cut, or the Forest Service does, we will do a survey and see what's left out there, and then maybe have to go take some individual trees out of the wetland area. It's obviously the environmental assessment that was done is very robust, and there's measures to protect the land that's out there when we're taking trees in that wetland area. And then with this permit through the next 20 years, it's fairly extensive itself that will take care of all those areas on the other side of Price Creek.
Is the bald eagle still?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
We,
we'll
the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, we're expected to get a permit, a nest take permit, so we're just gonna take the nest. It is not the fledgling season yet for the bald eagle. Matter of fact, tonight, a Forest Service, a Fish and Wildlife representative for Cherry Point was out there monitoring for 90 minutes before sunset. If they are using that nest, which is, it's before the time that they should be, of course, they don't read our calendars and actually know. But if we see that eagle approach that nest in the next 10 days, then we'll have to reevaluate. But we expect to have on the 13th of September, the permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to be able to cut the tree down with the nest in it. The Forest Service people will be present. They will take any debris that's, of course, feathers and things like that have to be quarantined and sent off to the federal government.
Commissioner McCabe?
Let me just ask you a question here. In the near future, are you trying to plan to expand the parking lot behind the airport?
The parking lot, we do have a long-term goal to expand it within the, there's a circular drive, terminal drive that goes around the existing parking lot. Is that the parking lot?
No, the one where you rent your cars from.
Yes, what we're gonna do, we're looking at right now, matter of fact, we have a meeting next week, plans, that is right now the tentative place for a new fire station for the airport. And then we will, from where that rental car lot is, we'll use the employee lot, which is about 40% larger than that rental car lot because they are asking for more rental car parking space, and we'll convert the employee lot to the new rental car lot, effectively flipping it to the other side of the terminal, and then the employee lot will be moved a little bit further back away from the terminal building itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Nays? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Next is Department Matters, Sheriff Dr. Megan Doyle, Jesse Pittman, and talk about the SROs. I guess,
Mr. Chair, if I may, just as they're walking up, I had a question from a commissioner today in regards to why it was two separate items, and it was the timing in which they came in. One was the original item, which is J.W. Smith, which is item A, and B was the Roger Bell Academy, which came in after based on some other discussions with the City of Havelock between the Board of Education. So that's why there's two items, but otherwise they're basically the same.
okay, but we can handle them the same, or you want it individually?
Either way.
Individually? Okay.
The same or individually, Chairman?
We can handle them the same.
Okay, great. Chairman Mark, Vice Chairman Dacey, members of the Board of Commissioners, thank you for having me this evening. This spring, the General Assembly approved grants for school safety, and a number of grants we had the opportunity to apply for. One of those grants was for school resource officers. We conducted a needs assessment and selected 4 elementary schools that we wanted to see the impact of school resource officers in. And based on that needs assessment, those 4 schools were James W. Smith, Roger Bell New Tech Academy, J.T. Barber Elementary, and Oaks Road Academy. Oaks Road Academy and J.T. Barber J.T. Barber Elementary School fall under the City of New Bern. They graciously approved providing 2 more resource officers for those 2 schools because we did get selected for the grant. In our application, instead of the normal reimbursement rate for school resource officers, we requested $50,000 and were approved for that $50,000 reimbursement rate. We do acknowledge, as has been for the last decade, that that probably does not cover the full cost of a resource officer, their equipment, training, and vehicle. However, we did not know what we'd be approved for, and so we took a chance going a little higher and were approved for a little bit more reimbursement. As a result, the school system will have to provide part of the match. The state is providing a significant portion of the funds, and then we are asking the commissioners to fund for 2 of the schools. One is James W. Smith, who I have to say thank you to Pastor Erlinda Dobson, who spoke very eloquently for our school system and on behalf of James W. Smith, as well as Mr. Russell, and our other parent, who I apologize did not get the last name of. No, I got Mr. Russell, but Martino. I appreciate all of those stakeholders and community members speaking on behalf of our schools. James W. Smith, our parent, did a great job of making the case, as did Pastor Dobson, about the remote nature of James W. Smith. The response times in that area of the county are particularly a challenge. In addition, that school has some infrastructure issues that cause cell phone service to be a little bit spotty. We do have telephones in all of our schools, but obviously sometimes, depending on the location of an emergency, we would want to be able to have that cell phone access. Putting a resource officer at that school, we believe, will benefit the school in terms of the fact that it's remote. It will foster positive relationships between our students and law enforcement. These 4 schools will allow us to study the impact of school resource officers on our elementary schools as well. We're also asking the Board of Commissioners to approve Roger Bell New Tech Academy as well. This is an elementary school that was identified because of our needs assessment as a high-need population. It also has some of the same challenges, although it's a little bit closer, and it is located in a municipality. The City of Havelock did not approve our request, and so we are coming to the Board of Commissioners to assist with this particular school as well. So obviously, all of us have dealt with the increasing violence to many public spaces in the last several decades, and we want to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to ensure the safety of our children in our schools. We have a number of infrastructure projects that we are endeavoring to take and to improve our schools, to include changing entrances, increasing our security software, but this resource officer grant was an opportunity that we could not turn down. So, Commissioners, we ask for your approval to place 2 more resource officers, one in James W. Smith and one in Roger Bell New Tech Academy.
Okay. Madam Clerk, this would be a motion for both the amendments A
Okay.
and B.
So move.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, start us out. During our budget discussions, Commissioner Tyson, he began the discussions for our board about school safety and what role that the county should take and what methods should be put in place. And from those discussions, this Board of Commissioners were told by the Board of Education that they were working towards identifying what safety measures should be put in place. So our board held off on taking any action until the Board of Education presented their plan to us. We've been questioned why we have not taken action up today, and that is the reason. Having said that, we have an opportunity this evening to place a school resource officer at James W. Smith School, and I do want to urge my colleagues to support matching this grant. I'm going to allow others to discuss Roger Bell, but I would like to reiterate some of the comments and facts that have already been shared tonight by some of my fellow citizens that took their time to come from western Craven County. We heard from Mr. Buck Russell. Buck is a leader in Dover. He serves as president of the fire department there. His family has lived in Dover for many, many years. He is also a police officer in the city of Kinston. And he is the father of a great young man who attends James W. Smith School. We also heard from Elder Dobson, who is also a leader, not only western Craven County, but in eastern North Carolina, with her role as presiding elder over many churches, a position she took from our own Representative William Rainwright after he passed. She is a grandmother, but she is also a guardian of a young man who attends James W. Smith School. In this room tonight, we also have Mrs. Renee Whitford, the former principal of James W. Smith School, and the current principal, Miss Sherry Thomas. If you will, please, both of you raise your hands, if you will. Thank you for being here. Both of these ladies could share situations that have occurred during school hours that justify the need for an SRO at James W. Smith School. And I'd like to personally thank Ms. Whitford for the effort she's put into trying to bring us to this point tonight. James W. Smith School is 23 miles, gentlemen, from this building and where we sit tonight. 23 miles. It is 14 miles away from the sheriff's office in Clarks. We have zone deputies that are on duty during the day, and they could be anywhere in western Craven County, or if they're called, they could go out to another area. If that zone deputy is in Dover, they are 13 miles from James W. Smith School. If that deputy is at Lane's Chapel at the county line on Highway 55, he's 10 miles from James W. Smith. If he's at Spring Garden at Lima Road there, he'll be about 11 miles from James W. Smith. The only other law enforcement agency that would be in close proximity would be the Vanceburg PD, which does not have 24-hour coverage. And this department is 15 miles from James Smith School. I think all of you understand the position of myself and others that have spoke tonight. James W. Smith School is vulnerable. With that being said, I urge my colleagues to support the funding for this SRO position. And I would add that even though that some would want to politicize protecting our children, this board still has a responsibility to do the right thing to protect our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lyon.
I would like to thank Mr. Martino for showing up and talking for Havelock. And Roger Bell's principal's here, Miss Lee. Miss Lee, if you mind standing up. This is your second year, correct?
Yes,
second
sir.
year and turning into the Tech Academy, which is great on that. We have an opportunity here. I think Mr. Martinez said it better than anyone. We do not want, we're in a different world today. We're in a complete different world of how we grew up. I think people were here last time when I read that letter. It's not about that. This, I think it was stated here, this is the first time this board is asked to assist in RSOs. It's our obligation, it's our duty to protect our future. Roger Bell is in my district as well as Commissioner McCabe's district, and we both share what goes into that school. The relationship, I think it was best said last Tuesday by the Chief of Police of New Bern. The results that they get and the relationship that is built between that police officer and that child is invaluable. It can't be counted on money. It cannot, of what they built and what they perceive growing up and moving forward. Saying that, we have the opportunity tonight. The school board has come before this board asking for our assistance, and I think we don't want to be back here in a year doing it again, or in a less than time if something drastically should happen, and God bless, we'd never have that happen in here. So based on that, I will be voting for both.
Mr. Chair, as a retired police officer as myself, I do agree with Mr. Liner on this, and I'm also going to support both schools.
Mr. Chairman, I'm really concerned about our young people, because I have 10 children myself, and I know how hard it was to get them educated. But I'm also concerned about all children in our county, because we need every assistance we can to keep them out of prison. We can spend more money out in the jail system and the prison than this little bit of money we're talking about tonight. Not only the peoples is in prison, the men and the women's in prison, you get more women's in there now. If we can educate them and keep them out of prison, that's a plus right there. Get them a job so they can go to work and pay taxes just like everybody else. So I'm really enthused about our kids and what the schools are doing for our kids, and teaching them and training them in the trades and the instruction that they need to be able to get a job and hold a job and do great things for our community. There'll be a time that we need to come together as now. A lot of us feel like sometimes that we got it made, we don't need anyone else. But I let's think about this year. This is about the worst year since I've been enduring storm-wise that I've seen. I never seen weather like this in my lifetime. And it could happen to anyone. It happened to me several times, how people come to my rescue. And we all gonna need somebody sometime. Sometimes we get complacent and think we can make it by ourselves, but that's not true. We need one another. And you can't pick out or choose who you're gonna help, because the same person you might deny, the same person might come down when something happen to you.
Mr. Dace?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the public's benefit, I thought it might just be helpful for us to take a step back and talk a little bit about what the school resource officers really do and how we got to this point. You know, I didn't grow up here in North Carolina, as folks may be able to tell from my accent. But I grew up in a community that's not unlike where we live here. And we didn't have school resource officers when I was going to high school and elementary school. But I recognize, of course, that things have changed significantly in that many year period of time. So I thought it might be helpful for us to just kind of review for the public, folks in the audience and the folks that are listening, what we're expecting of these school resource officers, because it's actually quite a bit. And the SRO will be responsible for diverting minor law infractions through the school disciplinary avenues and parent counseling, as well as to provide for the security and protection of staff and students. The SRO will develop various classroom presentations on a variety of subjects, from substance abuse, youth and violence, bullying, juvenile law, etc. The SRO will be available to the faculty and to the school to address student classrooms when required, or when requested, excuse me. The SRO should be an officer who deals well with youth and is able to establish a trusting relationship with students through support, good counseling, and confidence. Each primary grade SRO will be certified NC DARE, Drug Awareness Resistance Education Instructors, and present the DARE program with the 5th grade level. I think this is obviously wonderful, and the presentation, the paperwork that's been provided to us tonight also goes through a description of the work, the minimum qualifications that are going to be required, and then it also went through and thoroughly expressed a budget that we need to understand this. And just so that folks understand, we currently have how many SROs in the county? Two.
We have, well,
and then,
at the community college level also, sir.
Okay.
Well, in the public school system, we got two.
Okay. And the state does pay us about $39,000. The grant that we're accepting this evening bumps that up to about almost $50,000. So there's a little bit more margin there that's coming less out of the local taxpayers for us to meet the needs here. So we are getting some help, but I guess, well, first of all, I want to just ask, the DARE instructors that is being required here, of those SROs that we currently have, how many of them are DARE instructors?
No, the DARE program has been discontinued for some period of time, and it was our hope that maybe at some point in time we could reintroduce that. That's something we'd certainly like to talk with the superintendent about, but it could be a dual role for the school resource officer, and especially in the lower grade levels. That's where it seems to have the most effect.
Okay.
And, to get them early on, so that will be something that we hope that will come in somewhere down the line.
Okay, excellent. Now, will there be any additional cost requirement for that at all?
No, so we'll be able to take care of that. They have a break during the summer months and sometimes during school holidays. And what we'll try to do is plan some of that training on those off periods where they can go in and get the remedial training and the annual training they need. And we always try to hire quality people, and we also hire folks that we feel good about, but also the school administration feels good about as well. So we have someone that we put in there, and it's agreed upon by both parties, because it's some dual supervision that goes on there by school administrators. And of course, they fall under my authority as far as any liability issues and those types of things.
So we know through this description and through the testimony that's been provided to this board that when we have local law enforcement officials serving in these schools, that's probably best. And when I say local, I mean those coming out of the municipality rather than somebody coming out of the sheriff's office.
Absolutely.
That may well be the best way for us to address this. So we almost have to look at this in two ways. Number one, what's the funding mechanism? And number two, how do we select the officers that are going to be in the schools? And I know that in the past, we've always been very concerned, well, if it's the county that's funding it, that must mean that it's got to be a county official that's in the school. And I want to just argue to this board that I would hope that we not succumb to that notion. I would hope that we recognize that in this particular instance, we're in a unique situation where the point of nexus in funding is really through the county. What we've got right now is a situation where we've put the burden on the city of New Bern to pay for the SRO, or that little increment that we talked about earlier, to pay for the SRO that's at the New Bern High School. Though there are many kids that are coming from Trent Woods and River Bend, communities that I represent, that are also going to that school, but the taxpayers, I'm not trying to throw our taxpayers under the bus, but they're not helping out with that directly in that instance. However, if the resources were to come from the county itself, we might have a more thorough stream of revenue that would be able to address all the needs that we've got throughout the county. I'm concerned that through this effort, though it's a good one, we're still only touching the tip of the iceberg on the needs that we've got in our community. And Sheriff, it just brings me to one other question. I noticed that there was a post this past Friday that indicated that you had been supportive of, that you had secured additional funding for 3 more schools.
That was not from my agency or any people from my agency.
Okay.
It was somebody from within the school system that was misinformed, and once we saw it, we called them, and they took care of correcting the post.
So it was somebody from outside your agency?
That's correct. It was a citizen page.
Okay.
It may have been shared or posted to our website, that type of thing, but it was nothing that came from our agency or any member of our agency.
Okay.
And
Well,
it was well intentioned, and once we saw it, we called straight away, and within an hour, they had it squared away.
Well, I just wanted to be clear here what the numbers were, and in fact, because it's the school system that put the work into securing these spots.
Absolutely.
And I wanted them to get the recognition for this, so.
And we want to support that, and I would never, ever claim to have something to prove that had not gone before this board. You know, I've been doing it long enough to know that I'm not going to do that.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would just hope that maybe our board work with the school board to identify a path forward before the need is really demanding of us. Let's try to solve this question as immediately as we possibly can, and do it in a global way so that we're addressing all the concerns and needs of our community, rather than just the specific things that are kindly being met through this limited grant. Thank you.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Would you be amenable to having the chairman put together a committee
Oh.
that we meet with them? Because I think we have to have this settled and set up before we go into budget next year.
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
We can't be.
We've done a lot of legwork on that already, Mr. Liner, and with the county manager, and he's got some figures and numbers, you know, that may be helpful to you somewhat in the future. And so something that you can review and take a look at as far as that goes. And you know, we like to see. We know there's a lot of military kids that are going to a lot of these area schools, and I think many of them pay taxes in their home states. So a lot of these kids that are going to these schools, there is no tax base for them to be there. But we want to make sure that it's not so much about that, but it's protection of these children in all the schools, and also the school staff and administrators.
I want to go on what Commissioner Jones has said and what Vice Chair says. We cannot make this about money. This is their leadership. Dr. Doyle, you're hiding. This is her leadership.
That's right.
We have to work with her and her board to see the plan of where we're going. This has got to be a joint effort to begin with. Then there's got to be a conglomerate effort of everybody of how we want to come aboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to say, last week, our board met in retreat, and we presented our full safety plan to our board at that time. Obviously, it wasn't appropriate that we present it to you or anyone else before them. I have plans to meet with the county manager to discuss that, and then how to bring that forward to the Board of Commissioners in the next week or so. So the resource officer grant was something that the General Assembly put out for us to take advantage of, and we could not take advantage of it, as well as 2 other grants that we have been approved for. However, we need a plan, as you have indicated very appropriately, to move forward, not just with personnel, but also with structural improvements as well.
All I'm saying is both to the chair and the vice chair is if we had a committee already established come November, once the large session goes in, and we get a reading from them of how they're proven, I think it's gonna be prudent to us to have something understood before we go in to budget session in March and April when we start looking at this.
I believe
And then we're
another-
all working down.
Another $7 million from the legislature in the upcoming session for school resource officers. I think this last bout of money was just kind of like a quick fix on last year's budget, so I'm hopeful to see some of that, and hopefully we're on line with some of this, maybe we can be blessed with some more.
I'm very appreciative of Dr. Dole's efforts and her staff for applying for this grant, receiving this grant. We are really, truly excited about starting this program. One of the things that I would like to reiterate is that some type of drug awareness, resistance, education, anti-bullying campaign needs to be taught through these SROs. You know, with back when President Reagan was the president, Nancy Reagan's initiative was just so no drugs. As a result of that, the DARE program was developed, and it was implemented. It was utilized for many years, but after that presidency, we kind of entered into some Middle East problems overseas, and some money's had to be withdrawn. And so federal funding was cut, and a state level funding was cut. The DARE program survived, but for many years, the DARE program has not been taught in our school. And I believe that a lot of the epidemic that we're facing today with opioid crisis can be prevented with proper education at a primary school level while kids are still influential. And it's really a three-part process where we are providing safety for the school system, we're fostering a trustful working relationship with the students and the teachers, and we're also introducing that education model to just say no to drugs. And it's a pioneer effort, Dr. Dole, and thank you and your staff for everything you have done to get us to this place. And we look forward in going forward with you. There are 15 elementary schools in Craven County.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to recognize and commend Alderman Best for New Bern stepping up and doing what they did last Tuesday. We could have been in worse shape than what we are in tonight. But Alderman Best, I think you heard what we're saying. Something's gonna be taken care of in the coming year. But we appreciate what you all did and stepped up and did.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Sheriff, could you come up to the podium quickly? All right, the positions start on what date and end as far as in the school system? What, when
It's October 10th.
Sheriff, I budgeted for it to start the pay period of October 17th. That was just strictly to give us time to interview candidates for the position.
But typically, it would be at the first of when the school year starts, right?
Absolutely. Well, we want, yes, sir. We want a seasoned, somebody with at least 2 years' experience, patrol experience or road experience and that type of thing that has a background in arrest procedures and things of that nature. But we also look for people with the right type of personality and demeanor that works well in the school system. And many of the ones that we have had children and grandchildren in the school system now, in the schools that they have worked in. So it's really been a plus. So that's what we're doing. We don't want to take and just get a warm body. We want somebody that's going to do a great
But
job.
this will be a full-time position, so when the school year's out, what will be going on?
We generally utilize those folks with, we come in and work them in the lab. We do evidence auctions and things of that nature, child support warrants, transports. There's any number of things that they can do that we keep them busy with during the summer months. But they will have some leave build up, so we, when the school breaks, we try to let them catch up on their leave balances, maybe a week or two vacation, and then they come right in and go to work with us. So we'll have them doing something, they'll be busy. But there's also a lot of summer activities the school does that, that we'll take care of that as well.
That's the time that they get their training anyway.
I guess I was going to, are there productive things that they'll be doing, or that, I mean,
Absolutely.
I believe the criminal activity tends to be greater in the warmer months, doesn't it? Would you say?
Yes, sir.
Drug sales, et cetera, so you potentially
They will
have more
They will not be
staff.
sitting around and,
Right, I
they'll be
wouldn't,
working.
I wouldn't accuse you of that, but, and during the school year, if somebody's sick or injured or quits, or, I mean, are
Have
the
somebody
people
fill in the gap.
readily available to be able to step in for that day or week or whenever if they're out?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, getting back to Commissioner Aliner's statement, and he may have suggested this and I missed it, but I think, you know, if we form a committee to discuss this, I mean, we've got to bring in the city of New Bern
Yeah.
and the city of Havelock also in those discussions. You know, what reality is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we were to fund all these SROs in every school in this county, we're talking at least 2 to 3 cent tax increase.
Well, I mean, right, because everything after this is full cost. There's no additional grant money. So you're
So-
thinking it's 78,000 per officer. You've got 4 handle, you got 11 elementary schools at 78 apiece. roughly.
I commend the school board for identifying some schools that you thought that were needed. I mean, all of them are needed, but I think you chose out those that probably had the greatest risk. And that's what we're doing. But, you know, to get up here, and I'm not saying nobody has implied this, but for us to take a commitment to say that we're gonna fund SRO in every school in this county, who's gonna be supportive of a 3 cent tax increase, you know? I mean, where are we gonna find that money? And that's a continuing thing. So, but getting back to my original point, we definitely need to include the city of New Bern and the city of Havelock in those discussions.
Commissioner Jones, I am hopeful that we will look beyond just the notion of us having to employ somebody. We have got tremendous resources in this community from a volunteer perspective. And I would hope that there are going to be people with the right skill sets that have demonstrated themselves, perhaps through their service to the military, that may be able to step up to help fulfill some of the needs that we've got in these communities. And try to do this in a way in which it's responsible to the taxpayer, but also meets the needs of our communities.
Good point taken.
And gentlemen, I'll just tell you that this grant automatically is renewable upon proper reporting for another school year.
Well, probably not much after that, so.
We gotta worry about this one.
Yeah. All right, I have to commend the Superintendent Doyle on the work that she's done in supplying us with the proper information that we could make a decision on this whole thing, and also the Sheriff's Department. I'm proud of the Board of Commissioners for acknowledging we've got this problem. We've got to go further than just the schools that we're talking about here. Somehow we'll come up with the money, whether it's through grants, slight, maybe a tax increase might have to happen. But we have been good to the citizens of this county. If you go back 8 years ago, the tax rate was 6.18. The tax rate right now is 53.94. So we have kept the taxes low, and if we have to raise the taxes a little bit to save our children, then we have to do it.
That's right.
And I commend this whole board and the Board of Education and the Sheriff's Office for the work they have done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have we made a motion?
We've had a motion.
Yeah, we have to,
And second.
we'll handle this as one roll call
Right.
because it's A and B. We had a motion. We have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Dacey?
Yes.
Chairman Mark?
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we got right many educators here tonight, and I think they all got to get up early in the morning, so I'd like to ask for a 5-minute recess.
Okay, you got it. Downs on the Department Matters Economic Development with the Mockingbird Resolution project.
So I've actually got 3 items for you to take up this evening. Start with Project Mockingbird, and I know there's some comments about the names. It's a common practice in economic development to give projects names because sometimes you can't announce the company before a decision's been made by that company in order to protect the employees and the investments of that company. So this is Project Mockingbird. And if I may, just for a second, I applaud you on your work just before the recess because from an economic development standpoint, it is important to have schools that stay current with the needs of the community. I had just a conversation just this week with a company, and they asked about the schools. That comes up every time. So be sure that your work in that area is not unnoticed. Project Mockingbird is Chatsworth Products in our industrial park. They have a 79,000 square foot facility right now, and they've been with us for many years, but they are now at a point where they just have to grow. And so this is a project where they're going to expand their current facility by 29,000 square feet. They are going to add 15 jobs. They're going to add some additional infrastructure to the site, as well as make some organizational changes within the site so that things move more smoothly and more efficiently. So what's before you tonight is a consideration of a grant to Chatsworth from the county in the amount of $30,000 to support the work that they're doing there. And again, adding 29,000 square feet to their building, doing some stormwater management, adding a driveway, a second driveway so that truck traffic can pass more efficiently through the site. And there is a representative here from Chatsworth, Rich Keene. He is project manager on this. He's with us tonight. Rich, you raise your hand. Some of you have been out to Chatsworth Products. This is a fantastic company. They're growing. They've been very successful, continue to have success. Rich was just sharing me some of the measures they're taking in their other locations in Texas and California to accommodate this growth and the success. So I'm pretty excited about this, and I know Rich and his team out there are very excited about it. So again, tonight is for you to consider from the county a $30,000 grant, and this grant will go towards this project, but just as a reminder, they already got $180,000 from the state through a building reuse grant. That is being matched by the C1A's grant of $30,000 also. So I guess that's it on this particular project.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like just some clarification. The gentleman that was up here earlier in the public meeting asked, I think, some questions, and one, I think they questioned the authority of the county to be able to make these economic development grants, and I think it is in here, the general statute, that cites that, and I'll be glad to give this to the gentleman if he'd like to come get it. He can have mine. But there is.
It's on there.
It's on there.
It's on there.
It's on there, yeah.
And so.
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna let him have mine, Mr. Chairman. And also the state, you did mention the state is contributing to this economic development grant. This is one of our best partners, I think, that we've had in our industrial park, and adding 15 new jobs at an average salary of about 37, almost 38,000 a job. That's good. That's really good for New Bern. That's pushing $20 an hour, I would say, or something like that. I'm sure they've got some benefit packages, a pretty good construction project as well for the local, hopefully local, but if not for somebody, it's going to be putting some money in their pockets. I see this as a win-win. The private sector here in New Bern that serves on the committee of the C100 Alliance, is what it's called now, and it used to be the Committee of 100, has contributed as much as the county did, frankly, towards this. It's win-wins, good partnership, and let's see. It also is adding $1,700,000 to the tax base. Is that right? Or
well,
no, that's
about $1.8 million is the cost of their project.
Okay, $1.8 million is the cost of the project,
yeah.
And the tax, county property tax on that would be near about, what, $10,000 a year?
Well, yes, you can estimate at this point. It's hard to say for sure because our
Plus or
our
minus
tax
10,
right.
plus or minus 10,000.
10,000.
The ad valorem tax.
Well, that's not, if you figured it doesn't come up to that.
I mean, 10,000 is a
Yeah.
good approximate.
Yeah, 10,000 roughly. I don't know where those numbers came from. I read that too, Commissioner Lau. Regardless, that's a 3-year payback, just if you included that. And I understand that the public can have some concerns about picking winners and losers and, who gets what. Unfortunately, we're gonna hopefully pick winners and not losers, but I do get that part of it too. But I think that, to be competitive in this world, you have to show that you're in with the game. And I think that the county's taxpayers are getting a good return on their investment here, no doubt, and 15 good jobs too.
I agree.
So that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as the members of this board know, I'm loath to be supportive of these sorts of incentives. And the members of this board have been very, very patient with me in helping me to identify ways that we can structure these projects in a way that addresses infrastructure needs. So it's something that candidly, because of the work that the county had already engaged in, that's what we're fixing. That's what we're putting our money toward. We wouldn't have to do this if the county hadn't sold another piece of property that's adjacent to the piece of property that's being built upon here.
Correct.
That would have been able to allow for this more ingress and egress to take care of, to have been addressed more easily.
Right.
So what we are doing here is we are putting up the money to perfect a piece of property that we have allowed to get built upon in the county's industrial site that wouldn't be able to be used otherwise. And so that's how, in each of these instances, when we have taken something of the taxpayers, out of the people's pockets, of the taxpayers' pockets, and we've pledged it toward developing something, it's been because we're trying to maximize the value of something that will then allow for employment to become more robust and really fulfill an economic development interest that's not just simply geared towards a specific company, but fixing a problem that we have to make that land marketable. And I think that the next project is somewhat the same way, as for all the others that we've done.
Well, if I may, just to remind the public, the county is holding a significant amount of money that came back from separating from the East Alliance years ago, and that money has to be spent on economic development mandated by the state. So this is money that eventually has to be spent on economic development somehow, and unfortunately, I don't think school resource officers counts in this case, but maybe if it did, we'd spend it there. But in the absence of that, we need to spend it on something like this.
Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of considering the adoption of this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it.
The next one is called Project Grouse. This one is to me, one of the most exciting that I brought before you in a long time, simply because it's a company that's coming from out of state. They're a Pennsylvania company that does a lot of high-end manufacturing. They build machines and machine parts for the automotive industry and several others. And we were in the running for this project in competition with South Carolina. And the state has tentatively awarded a 1NC grant, as I mentioned earlier, of $70,000.
Excuse me, somebody's talking.
And tentatively awarded also a building reuse grant of $130,000. The building reuse grant, again, requires a 5% match. The C1A has approved $45,000 to go towards that match and beyond, as well as there's, I'm sorry, I mentioned the 1NC grant. So those two grants from the state. So what you have before you tonight is a $45,000 incentive to once again help with infrastructure and building improvements at the site. If you're familiar with the industrial park, it's on the south side, right adjacent to Craven Wood Energy. It's a 17,000 square foot facility that they want to move into and make some significant improvements. And again, just to reiterate, 33 jobs in 5 years, 20 jobs in 3 years, and over $2.5 million worth of investment over that time frame. So again, a very good project. Again, because we're bringing them from out of state. And their ultimate plan is to move all of their operations from Pennsylvania to North Carolina. And they've been very open with me that they're very excited about moving to North Carolina because in Pennsylvania, evidently, and not to disparage that state in any way, but evidently they're not interested in helping manufacturing companies grow. And we are here in North Carolina. So again, before you is a resolution to support a $45,000 grant to McGuckin and File. That's the name of the company.
Timothy, I think,
Sir.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry for interrupting, Megan. The $45,000 was also related to infrastructure improvements. Obviously, with the building had been just a warehouse before with an active manufacturing site, they'll need enhanced electrical,
Yes.
water, sewer, and fiber, which would be what our money would assist with,
Yep.
based on the policy.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
Just one more thing, Tim, because I was trying to find it in my package and I couldn't.
Mhm.
Okay, so our portion is 45,000, and what did you say about the
C1A is also 45,000.
Okay,
The state 1NC grant is 70,000,
okay.
which has not been awarded yet, but it's tentatively awarded. The governor's about to make an announcement soon. And then the building reuse grant is 130,000.
Okay.
And those two commitments by the company from the state perspective is over a 3-year period. They look at a 3-year period. These jobs are very high-paying jobs as well. $44,000 is their average salary.
And Timothy, some of these employees are actually coming with them from Pennsylvania.
That's correct.
Which makes
Yeah.
it a little even more creamier.
I believe so, yes.
All right, any other discussion? Do I have we have a motion and a second. All in favor of adopting this resolution? Say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it.
Okay, the last one is the same project. However, in order to submit this building reuse grant, we have to adopt a resolution in support of it. And in this case, the building reuse program at the state level is a program that provides funding in this case, or in these types of cases, but requires the local government to be the applicant. So we have already prepared the application, it's ready for signature, and simply we're applying for the $130,000 to then be distributed to the company. It would come through the county, but much like we have done just recently with Chatsworth, the funding would come upon completion, so the county wouldn't be extending any credit or anything like that. It would be a reimbursement type grant. So this resolution is just to support that application.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? And there's no discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Department matters, Jack Bite, Convention Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to present to you. At your last meeting, I shared with you an ongoing discussion with the TDA in regards to the Visit New Bern website. I was to report back to you today with some additional information, which in your agenda packets as attachment 9 are 2 documents. One is a proposed scope of work with J. Avery Events and Marketing. And item 2 would be a New Bern Business 2018-2019 Plan of Action presented by High Tide, and this should be for the New Bern Riverfront Convention Center Marketing Program. I did have a second meeting with folks representing the TDA. It went very well. We worked through certainly some issues that we need to, as we transition in different directions, issues we need to kind of wrap this thing up. What I'm unable to talk to you about today is we still have not seen a legal document from them about exactly what I would present to you in this arena. So I presented the 2 documents. Obviously, those are still valid, but I'm not prepared to give you sort of my recommendation at this time without seeing that document. Our attorney, Ari Grady, has reached out to their attorney, informing them of our timeline, I believe last week. And at this time, our next opportunity would be September 17th at your next meeting to discuss this. Quite frankly, to ease your mind, there is no cost moving forward to share the website. What we would do is simply offer them a license where they could have joint use with us. What the 2 documents propose is if you want to jump back into actively participating and creating content. At this time, with us moving in different directions at the Convention Center, I'd almost put these 2 documents on hold for a couple months, see where the direction comes. So really, without the legal document, there really being no cost for us to share it at this time. I'd really wait for that legal document to come forth if the board's okay with that, and just hopefully have it for you at September 17th.
Okay. Any objection by the board? I also, having not been here at the last meeting, and I am the member on that TDA board, I'd like to sit down with you and the
Sure.
attorney and go through this with you.
It's actually a more global agreement than just a website. I mean, there's certainly shared files, shared templates, shared items that we need to work on. But we made a tremendous amount of progress with them last week.
And the Vice Chairman, can you join me?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
What did I just go to?
You were arrested.
You're going to California.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is appointments. Pending, current, upcoming appointments be effective immediately unauthorized specified. Pending appointments, Adult Care Home Advisory Committee, we have 4 vacancies. Emergency Medical Service Advisory Council, 1, and Nursing Home Advisory Council, we have 4. Isn't it funny that we have 4 vacancies on those 2 committees? That the state took away our appointment ability, and the state hasn't done a darn thing about appointing people to them.
I bet you it'll be 4 for a long time, sir.
Yeah. We never had 4 vacancies before, that's for sure. Current appointments, Craven County Board of Adjustment, 2 vacancies. Please review the packet names.
Mr. Chair, if I could comment on that, please?
Yeah.
At your last meeting, we gave you 2 spreadsheets that included names of people who qualify for these seats. One is the accident zone, protection zone down around Cherry Point, the other's around our airport. Those lists include anybody who can be appointed, and they have to come from that list because of the way the zoning's set up.
All right, so if you can get me a copy of that list?
Those are there, you look at them.
Okay, I have them here.
Now, some names on there may be duplicates, that may already be serving, so refer back to this. And also, their name may be a property owner, but they may not be a resident there, and that would also be somewhat of a
Now, have you
dilemma.
called any of these?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Are you planning on calling?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll leave that up to you. If you have a problem, I'll help you.
Okay.
Craven County Planning Board, you have an appointment?
Yes, I'd like to appoint Sharon Marion. I've talked to her. She's still interested, would like to serve.
Okay, we'll appoint her up by acclamation. Riverbend Planning Board, Kelly Forrest is seeking reappointment for Riverbend Planning Board.
I would move forward.
Move forward on that, acclamation. Fire Tax Commissioner, Alton Riggs, District 7. District 7. And Ralph Morris in District 2. I will appoint Ralph Morris, reappoint Ralph Morris. District 7 is Alton Riggs. And
Commissioner Tyson.
wishes to be reappointed.
Who's that?
Alton Riggs.
Alton, okay.
Alton.
Yeah, I'm good with
Okay.
that.
Appointed by acclamation. Upcoming appointments, Firemen's Relief Fund Board of Trustees, Fred Mitchell and Aaron McLawnhorn. Fire Commissioners, Joseph Midget and Aaron McLawnhorn. And Craving Aging Planning Board, Clay Gaskins. County Attorney's Report, his first report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good evening again. I have one item for your consideration this evening. The county owns a tract of park or a tract of real estate in Dover on Old US 70. We acquired it by virtue of a tax foreclosure. We have received an offer to purchase in the amount of $2,500. The town of Dover, as being a party to the original tax foreclosure, has indicated through a resolution and signature on the offer that it approves of the transaction. So the matter is before the commissioners this evening to consider doing likewise. Assuming you approve it, we'll go through the notice and upset bid process and get it closed for you.
Okay. Commissioner Jones, would you like to make the motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
County Manager's Report.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Just a couple items. Mr. Chair, as we spoke about earlier today, I do believe on October 15th, after your day meeting, this board is in need of a work session. I would schedule it as we have in the past, immediately following the meeting. There's a variety of items we need to catch up on since budget. Obviously, some long-term thinking on items we've discussed tonight, so I would ask the board to schedule that if possible. I'd kind of like you to look at your calendar.
October 15th?
Yes, sir.
October 15th, what,
It's Monday.
that's Monday.
And it's usually about 11 o'clock by the time we get there.
Right. Any problem with October 15th?
Okay, I ain't got my
Nobody seems
calendar.
to have a problem so far.
Most of you, we usually pick that day because most of you are already here.
Yeah. Good thinking, Jack.
Yeah. Trying to think ahead. To follow up on what Commissioner Dacey and Commissioner Liner, and I believe Commissioner Jones were having a discussion on, I want to make sure I'm clear. Was there a desire by this board to put together an internal committee to discuss SRO issues?
Yeah, I believe there was.
If so, my belief would be your first meeting needs to be with the Board of Education to determine what the scope of the project is. Remember, they're the organization by general statute that's authorized to contract for law enforcement services, not this board. So you need to work in conjunction with what their desire is. And I think that's a good starting point before you bring others in, because you don't want to confuse the issue and work something here and not have the Board of Education support.
Okay.
So I'd almost ask, I think it'd be great if that committee met with them initially, see where you get, and, you know.
Then let's, you and I talk
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, would you talking about a subcommittee for them or their full board? If it's gonna be their full board, why wouldn't we just have our
Well,
full board?
you know, that's a good point. I mean, maybe it's a joint meeting.
Yeah.
It really, I
That-
mean, that
we
might
could
be the
use a
best way to
joint
get it
meeting
out.
anyway.
I'm gonna say the same thing. We all
I think
should be
that's a great
together.
idea.
Okay, let's.
I think you guys need to have a mutual understanding before you move
Yeah.
past this point. The only way you can do it really, I believe, would be to have both. boards
Everybody be
together.
on the same board.
Okay.
Would you like me to work with Dr. Doyle to try to
Yeah.
schedule that next month?
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
October's good.
okay, okay, very good. Lastly, just an observation, and I don't know if Timothy's still here. He is. I just, it's kind of bittersweet seeing him at the microphone, having just left our employment, however, be it still your contract. But as we go through these items, I think about where we are on the cusp of great things with economic development in this county and his hard work over the last 5 years getting us there. It's simply amazing to see, we cherish those companies who want to move to Craven County from somewhere else. And those are the tough ones. Growing from within, growing those businesses who've already invested here that could invest somewhere else. To see those things on the agenda just reminded me of what we're really trying to do here. So I just want to make that. Timothy, certainly bittersweet, but I'm still glad you're up here making those kind of presentations. So that's all, Mr. Chair, unless you have things for me.
Anybody have anything for?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Do we want to do the closed meeting?
Commissioners' reports.
Suggest-
Commissioner Tyson?
Session first. Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
in lieu of commissioner reports, could we go ahead and dispose of the closed session meeting and then come back and do commissioner meeting?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. We have two closed session meetings, so could you tell us what they are, sir? Counselor?
Yes, sir. We have two closed sessions. One is for economic development matters, General Statute 143, 318A4, and the other is active criminal investigation, which I'm going to have to get from our attorney here.
It's in your agenda packet.
143,
31811.
31811.
Okay.
1 and 7.
All right, so do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Doing it for both of them.